That's right.
Hey.
Welcome again.
I told my mom to stop writing.
Fantastic Sunday show that you cannot get enough of. Oh my God! It's the Sunday show. You know it's that show.
We've
Tom, did I get
lost
too
every
much?
viewer.
Should I scream louder into the microphone?
Maybe if we get Frank on. Yeah. Oh, there. You got Frank back.
Oh, now we've got Frank. So we can go ahead and do our introductions this week on the Sunday podcast. Wait, what are we calling it?
Speaker's Corner.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah. It was a joke, kids. It's a joke. So welcome to
jokes were
Speaker's
supposed to
Corner.
be funny.
We're going to sit here and have the speakers speak from their corners, from the four corners of the point of view. I will introduce our first corner in the white shirt. That is Frankus Aurelius Havingtonus.
Did that make me the white knight of the group? If I'm wearing the white
I
We'll
see
find out
foreshadowing.
later.
I see foreshadowing. And then from the purple corner with the dress on, ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Lynch.
Hi, everybody. I'm here at the Wyndham Grand enjoying a grand summer, a beginning of summer.
Yeah, Wyndham Grand doesn't describe the city or place that you are. Are you in Bermuda?
There's a reason. No, Orlando.
Orlando.
Sunny Orlando, Florida.
Sunny Orlando, Florida, which translates into hot as balls. Really. And in the yellow corner, from the most astute, with the thickest papers of any city amongst our world. Wait, don't they have thick, like the New York Times, a thick paper, right?
Sunday issue is very thick. Yep.
That is right.
Saturday,
You are
yeah.
the thickest of the thick. There you go, Thomas Holmes. Say
Are
good
you calling
morning.
me thick?
You know, not in the way that you thought.
All right.
More dense with knowledge.
Dense with
I'll
knowledge.
take
Wait,
it.
dense is not good either, is it?
No.
And these are not very,
Dig in a
complimentary,
hole.
are they?
Dig in a hole.
I know,
Might have to
seriously.
give you some new words today, Jeff.
Seriously, my wordsmith skills are off.
thick like an oak.
So say good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good morning.
Okay. And then, of course, my name's Jeff Wheeler. I don't know why I speak first, but I tend to do so. And I am coming to you from my lovely home here in Johns Creek, Georgia. Home of Balls of Solid Stupid. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely.
And good morning. So we'll go ahead and start on our topics this week. So there was we tend to write each other throughout the week to say things that are on our minds, et cetera, et cetera. And an email came across yesterday, day before, that totally made me not understand a single thing. But it sounded interesting. So we're going to leave it to the man who knows a little bit about that to get it started. So Tom, what is Wagner, Michael, OSC, Woody, arts versus artists? Go.
Yeah, this is something I've wanted to talk about in the show for a while, or at least kind of bring to the table and get your vantage point, which is the conundrum of when do you separate, when and how, or if you can separate an artist from their art. Specifically, I'm talking about an artist who, because of what they do in their personal life or have done in their personal life, suddenly become tainted. And does that, in turn, taint their art? So the names I threw up: Wagner, Michael Jackson, Orson Scott Card, Woody Allen. Kind of going historically, everything from, most recently Woody Allen and the allegations of sexual abuse of his children, his daughter, has put it kind of in a quandary. He's not been obviously convicted of anything, but it has led to this kind of a lot of people soul searching and deciding, can I in good faith still watch his movies or enjoy his movies? And then similarly, I put Orson Scott Card, who wrote one of my favorite novels of all time, Ender's Game, but is also a rabid homophobe, bigot.
Yes.
And then Michael Jackson, his allegations, and all the way going back to the composer Wagner, who has ties to anti-Semitism, and obviously his music was used by the Nazi Party years after his death. So I just kind of put it out there that
Why did you not include O.J. Simpson in this?
because he's not really an artist. I mean, I guess the
come
Naked
on,
Gun
Naked Gun
movies.
33 and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were
Or wait,
good
Naked
movies.
Gun 2.5, 33 and a third.
Third. Yeah. Yeah. No.
I mean, those are
but-
art pieces if I've ever seen them.
Yeah. So is there a statute of limitations? Is there? does it
Is
have
there a
to
too
be,
soon?
Does there have to be a conviction, or does it? Where can you enjoy art regardless of the artist behind it, or do you have to, because of political or personal beliefs?
Do you need to contextualize that piece of art in front of you with what that person did in their life? And it may be a masterpiece of painting or a film, but it doesn't matter if the person who did it was not a good citizen.
Right? Roman Polanski, who, convicted of statutory rape, fled, but people still go to his movies and defend him as an artist. But so I throw this out there. I don't have an answer for this.
You want me to start? Michelle, you have something you wanted to start with?
You go ahead and start, Jeff. Yeah.
All right. My opinion, as I see it, because from my corner, I see it as there is a separation in the product of some man's work and the man himself, right? So would I want to be in a room and introduce Roman Polanski to a daughter I future have? Probably not. But does that have any influence on my ability to watch his movies? No, don't think so. Is Michael Jackson's music still good? Yeah, pretty much, even though he's not somebody, again, that I'd want my children to hang around. And so I think that you treat a man and his production as two separate things. And if you don't, then we're going to be losing out as a society on some of the most valuable works that our society can produce. Because to be an artist, to me, means that you are a little bit outside of the norm, which leads to a higher opportunity and a higher chance of people being off their rocker, right? People that don't really have all their stuff together. You don't get a lot of polymaths. You don't get a lot of people who are Renaissance men and both understand philosophy and the justice and all these kinds of things at the same time as they produce valuable and lasting art pieces. So my argument would be that for the good of man, you have to separate a man and his art, therefore allowing for the art piece to be glorious without an artist. Same way with an anonymous, right? So I would treat every art piece as a demarked piece of anonymous art.
All right, I have a question for you.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Is hacking considered art?
Is hacking considered art? It is getting there.
Yeah, if you have to define art, but art is an individual's definition.
Agreed.
I do have more on what you're thinking, though, Jeff. I would have some caveats to that. My first caveat would be that if it's Wagner, and Wagner wrote a "Kill All the Jews" piece, and that was what's being distributed, I would be against that. I'm also against
but then you're still staying within what I'm talking about, which is you are judging the art piece on the art piece, right? So if the art piece has bigoted language or concepts in it, then you can judge that art piece exactly on what it is, as if an anonymous artist created it.
Yes, but here's my second point.
Okay.
My second point being, if the artist is still alive,
Uh-huh.
the artist has access by in and of themselves to a lot of people and all of their fans. So I think that in giving and supporting them, if the artist is still alive and you disagree, that you should speak up. More so.
So you're saying a sunset on that is you are socially required to not support somebody who doesn't support your philosophical views until they have passed, and you no longer can make an effect on their life. Once their life has been closed as a chapter, then you can appreciate their art as art. But until that day, you have to see them as the whole picture. Because you can still make an influence on how that person lives.
It's the equivalent. Michelle's point is the equivalent of having sanctions against not a country but against a regime.
Right.
I'm not against the Russian people, but I will do X, Y, and Z until Putin has left office, at which time relations will return to norm. So I think So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you may have to stand your ground and decide I need to basically boycott something until the point where that person can no longer profit, as I can see, or be able to turn those profits as a way to be a
Influence.
mouthpiece for what they believe, or to allow them their lifestyle that, or criminal lifestyle that I disagree with.
I disagree with, yes.
Hmm.
According to Google,
I think that
the
has some
word
I think
artist-
that has some validity.
What's it,
What'd
Frank?
you say, Frank?
You know how Google does kind of wordsmithing about the actual usage of the word?
Really hard to understand you, Frank.
I think he paused.
Yep. He's in what we call internet limbo.
Man,
I like that face he left us with, though.
Yeah, that's a great one. need to fix those pipes and tubes down there.
I'm just going to
Yeah.
comment on the Wyndham Grand's internet being pretty well stable to be able to hold this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you are not walking out into the woods out there, it seems to work quite well.
Indeed.
There
So,
are woods
my-
in Orlando.
No, Disney took them all up.
I think Michelle has a very valid argument on the not supporting an artist while he is alive, but I still think that we are doing a disservice to the grander scope of human accomplishment to ignore art that we may not think politically viable at the time that that person is alive. And over history, I have seen that there are many artists that were quote unquote ahead of their time, right? That they weren't socially accepted at the time because it was okay. So Galileo Galilei thought that there were not, or he thought that the planets did not, or the sun did not revolve around the planets or revolve around the Earth, right? That was not socially acceptable. It was heresy to say that against the church.
That's part of
Right.
So if you take your argument and apply it to that, all of a sudden somebody who has something that was quote-unquote ahead of his time is not being recognized while he's alive and supported in his ability to do that.
So what's the topic again? Like what's the point of this conversation?
Can you separate an artist and its art? Or do those things stay inextricably linked?
They're linked
Nice.
because it's a process of being a human being.
Art is a process
on.
of being a human being?
You can't
Go
separate
on.
the artistry of being human. They're all being human. That's my point. Take it forward.
Tom, do you, after we've enlightened a few things, are there any other points you'd like to involve?
No, I'm happy to hear that everyone here seems to share kind of a similar viewpoint that I have. I just wanted to hear it aloud. Maybe I just needed confirmation of my kind of it's hard, it's rough. I don't think it's easy. I think also the most important thing is we can't, if one of us here chooses to refuse to separate an artist from an art, I don't think we should judge that person for the decision they've made. I know that, like I have friends who have chosen to drop Mr. Woody Allen, and I respect that decision. But at the same time, I still enjoy his films, and I don't know if I'm ready to stop. But at the same time, I will not damn someone for their decision to.
Right. So
Right.
I would give them the respect to be able to say I am not going to support them as long as that respect is reciprocal and they allow me to still support
I would
him
hope
if
so.
I have the wish to do so.
I would hope
As
so.
long as that's
Yeah.
a two-way street, I'm all for it. If you don't want to support him and you don't want to give your dollars to him, high five. Stay on your wagon as far as what you
It's-
think is important.
It's like don't getting gay married. That's all.
Right.
Don't get gay married.
Yeah. If you don't support gay marriage, don't do it.
Right.
You have the ability to not get gay married. I think that that's a reasonable thing. Is everybody here in agreement with that? If any human being in our
Agreed.
society does not want to get gay married, they don't have to.
I think it should be
That's
mandatory.
right.
I think everyone should.
Mm,
I think everyone should. That's my opinion.
At
Try
least
it at
once
least
in their
once.
life, you know? At least once.
Or twice, or a
Yeah.
few times.
Uh-huh.
Or weekends, you know.
yeah.
This is my weekend husband.
I think you have to say it a little gayer. You have to go, this is my weekend husband.
Oh, is that... you offended so many of our listeners.
I don't even know what you were doing there. That was just...
We
No, I
do
think
have
it
a
was like
number,
country.
we do have a number of viewers.
I think you've confused a stereotypical gay accent with one of the cast members of Designing Women. Because that just sounded like you were just sassafras and...
It sounded like the guy on Designing Women. I don't know what his name is.
I thought he was doing Delta Burke. I don't know what
Jeff, you had said something about hacking as an art, and I think that...
Well, that was actually
Frank
Frank brought that up.
So what do you mean? How ones and zeros? I don't get it.
Well, okay,
Honestly.
so that goes to describing. Oh, by the way, we do have a number of viewers, and I'd like to thank those viewers for joining us. If you have anything that you'd like to bring up, please do jump into the Q&A. I have posted this on a couple of social medias, and it looks
And
like
don't
about a couple
hack us.
people jumped in.
Because
and
we're
so
professionals
hoorah.
at this.
Okay,
Don't
so
hack us.
yeah, don't hack it. So the hacking as an art. So I guess I want to think about art in a particular way. And if I was to define art, it is to take tools that are commonly and readily available and create a creative and beautiful solution with those tools.
Like
Right?
porn.
That's not necessarily a solution. A creative and beautiful piece for enjoyment based on those readily and commonly available tools. Right? So if you take stone and you cut that stone into a shape, then that can be considered art.
I got questions.
I got problems with that definition.
Okay.
Questions and then problems.
Well, one thing is, it's going to be very hard for us to all agree on what art is.
That's true.
Second thing is that what about those people that create woven baskets that are for utilitarian purposes but are still beautiful and artistic, and you start getting into like muddy waters. Sorry, go ahead.
But at the moment that it's made for beauty and enjoyment and not just for purpose, it becomes art.
Then I agree. Once something moves beyond purely, that's why
Purely
architecture
function.
can be is art. When it moves beyond, it's not four walls and a roof.
Correct.
It's
Okay.
something. So my question is, then I put the challenge onto you, because I had an argument once with someone when I was talking about royalties for film, and I said I don't understand. It was like, I think it was during one of the I can't remember whose strike it was. It was, we'll look it up and put in the show notes. But late '90s, I don't think it was the
show notes that never
the
exist.
screenwriters.
No, the screenwriters is later, I think.
Yeah, it must have been. It was the one before the screenwriters then. So it's about residuals and royalties, and so I kind of got into an argument with a friend of mine who was a actor and a playwright over, because part of me did not understand. I was like, okay, I understand that, but where do we draw the line? Does the electrician who works on the film, should they get royalties? And his response was no, because they're just doing a job. To which I responded, well, isn't the actor just doing a job? They have clothes put on them. They're given the lines to say, and the director says, no, do this time faster. Do it this time with more motion. So basically, they are being instructed on what to do, to which his response was like, no, but there's artistry implied in that. So I got a little bit vague. So my question to you, I'd say the onus is, explain to me, when does hacking cease to be just I need to do X, and suddenly it becomes, I need to do X, but I'm doing it in an artful way.
Right. Okay. So the line in the sand for me is when it stops being for utilitarian purposes. So we'll go to your electrician example.
Okay.
I work in industry from time to time, where I go out to facilities where they have people who do tradesman work, traditional tradesman work, plumbing, electrician, those kinds of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bricklaying, all these kinds of things. And so and bricklaying is another great one. But if you go to an electrician, there are some panels that I go into that electricians have lined out and done, and are completely functional, right? But there is no artistry in what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is wire A goes from point A to point B, and that's it. It connects. You can barely tell it's there, but you can dig it out. It's functional. Then there are others where they lay them out in exactly perpendicular and parallel lines, have laid them across a panel in such a way that it's not just functional, but it's also beautiful, right? So also to the bricklaying, there's a famous example of bricklayers. When the bricklayers of the world stopped being functional and started being artists was when the Masons took and made their place in the world.
Freemasons.
So the Freemasons created this concept of functional art, to me, right? So the keystone in running an archway over a passage can be done in a way that's purely functional, or it can be done in a way that's beautiful. And so that way of doing it both beautifully and functionally at the same time created art in that same utilitarian, vocational pursuit.
Uh-huh.
So if you're going to hacking, when the hacking, and maybe I should define hacking, is taking devices and tools that are intended for one purpose and separating that and splitting it into a different purpose and being able to create that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just had somebody join the Q&A and they left, but maybe they will come back. So
Never reveal numbers. Man.
never. Well, just had another person.
Continue.
But if somebody takes a piece of electronic devicery, a piece of code, and reuses that in such a way that it becomes beautiful to the trained eye, then it can suddenly become artistry. The text file, right, is not a piece of art, but if you've ever seen a piece of hacked software that comes with the .info file and they use ASCII art to show things, you're taking keyboard characters and turning that into a piece of beauty.
Or care language.
So at the point that it stops being, and you know, stenography
But
to me
that's
is
ASCII art in an NFO file. It sounds like it's the equivalent of I made a cinder block house, but now I'm just going to throw some paint on it. Is that art?
If you're doing it in a new and novel way, if you're the first person to ever put, if whenever we were over in Africa and they took the pigments of some flower and you're the first person to go out there and utilize that color on your home, then yeah, I do think it's a bit of art. I do think it's a bit of art.
Michelle, you wanted to jump in?
No, I need to soak in what you guys are saying again because
you guys,
feel
it's
like...
really just me.
So go. What's your main? The crux of what you're saying is
when somebody does something not just purely for functionality, but also for beauty. Well, and I shouldn't say beauty, for the enjoyment of the audience, right? Whether it's a visual media, an auditory media, or whatever media it is, whatever it comes across.
No, I don't agree. I absolutely don't agree with that. When we say, because artists don't necessarily do their art for the audience.
You sure?
They will, yeah. I'm 100% positive.
Give me an example. I'm trying to follow you.
Artists don't do it for the. I mean, they're doing it to progress the art, like Van Gogh or whoever. That they're piss poor people. That they're doing it to advance their knowledge and what. There are artists that do that. So I'm not going to say every artist does it for the audience.
Well, not that they're playing pop music, right? But somebody's able to play this, you know, avant-garde Philip Glass piece where it's 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, right? So it's still derived from the enjoyment of some audience. What's that?
Points to Jeff for knowing who Philip Glass is.
I know, it's really kind of random, isn't it? So, but he was a very avant-garde writer of music, and so when he did that, he created a concept that was very separate and very different from what everybody else was doing, but it still had a purpose of speaking to an audience, doing something, evoking something in an audience. And so
evoking, okay.
So yeah, and so not necessarily enjoyment, but I would say evoking a reaction from an audience.
Okay.
Not just doing something to fulfill a purpose.
Okay.
Right? And so, Tom, to your answer, when you take a building that's cinder block building and you paint it, it is a bit of art. Because you're trying, and if that paint is just there to functionally protect the cinder block, no, it's not art. But at the moment that the paint is placed there purely for evoking some sort of evoking some sort of response from an audience, whether it be positive or whether it be negative, traditionally it's positive.
So every person that goes in to paint my house is an artist? Like that the people that have painted this resort's facade is an artist? Or is the person that created the facade and what it was going, how it's looking and putting it all like together?
Actor versus electrician. Actor versus electrician who does the lighting for a movie set.
Right.
Yeah. I think anyone who creates an idea, whether or not they execute the idea or not, if it was the person who created the concept, they are therefore an artist. And to me, that's kind of where the definition of art is.
Okay, so the person that would create the resort would be like a designer of some sort, and designers.
Yeah, if it's an architect and the architect determines what colors are on the walls because it evokes a particular emotion, right?
Right.
Then I think that's a piece of art. I think that the guy in Vegas who decided to add more oxygen to the air in the things because it made people feel good had a certain level of art to doing that.
Okay.
I think black
is
art.
Tom does not take that.
This is
okay.
This
What part did you not like?
Place. Oh, I'm not saying I didn't like it.
Oh.
I just was like, really, so pumping extra oxygen into a room is art.
When it is there to, well, yeah.
Maybe the idea of
so was my bowel movement this morning art because it had never been done before, and in the moment I did it and it was pretty impressive.
Did you post it on YouTube?
And it had.
Did you post it on YouTube?
Because art, like to Michelle's point, I don't necessarily need an audience. For my art. I just created. No, you can. Oh, so
I think you have to have an audience of at least one.
I was in the room with it.
Piece of art.
Me.
I was in the room with it.
Me. I just art? Like when I.
I'm officially. I flushed down a masterpiece this morning. I'm calling it now. It was a masterpiece, and yes, I will. Next time, I will post it online for consumption.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is that?
Maybe I'll do
worldwide hip hop or whatever they call it.
What's that?
We've got a question, guys, but it's in a different language, and it may not even be a question.
It's in Arabic, and it says, "You guys shut the fuck up."
No.
Nah. Quim
eso.
Correct. I don't know. That sounds like a Latin, maybe.
All right. So I'm tired of art.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Move on to man, we've just been talking about art. Because the next thing I see is White Knight and sexism.
Well, the whole topic of today,
culture.
our show is called For the Art.
Oh.
Right?
Nice.
Did you see what I did there? You didn't even know I was going to do that.
So if speaking of things that can be considered art or not considered art, video games, comic books, nerd world, nerd kingdom places. Let's talk about what's happening there and sexism. And I've heard a lot of people complaining about the way women are treated in each of these areas. Comics,
absolutely,
comic cons, yeah.
it's I don't know if it's irony or it's just kind of sad, is that some of the most the sexism that exists in the nerd subculture, and I put that in quotation marks because much of it has become video games and comic books are pretty mainstream now. I mean, video games make more than movies, and the best-selling movies feature X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, things that only 20 years ago were kind of that stamp of for being into that. So, so I'm not sure if nerd culture seems pretty mainstream now, or sans nerd, but I think there was this idea that the nerd is it's the jock that's the most aggressively sexist or misogynist, and so the nerd. I mean, from movies, you always see it's like, oh, it's always the nerdy friend who was the one who, oh, you hope he gets the girl, but maybe he won't. Whereas the jock was kind of like even someone who doesn't seem like the nerd. There is nerd aspects. I'm thinking of Matthew Broderick in Ferris Bueller, where he is kind of like the counterculture kid. He's cool and popular, but he's also a little bit kind of weird, and he likes electronics and stuff. So we've been fed this idea of kind of nerd as the progressively non-misogynistic subculture, where in fact it's virulently misogynistic. And kind of defensive of its territory, and also questioning of woman's role in it. Women who are into video games, it's like, oh, that's cute, but really, or they become sexualized. It's you go to the con, and it's all the cosplays have to be kind of
sexy.
It's almost like sexy Doctor Who, or either gender flipping a character, or wearing the sexy outfit. And so it's just sex, to where I think misogyny and general sexism in nerd culture is on par, if not at times worse, than in more jockish mainstream culture.
Well, look, what is the most popular comedy right now on television?
Big Bang Theory.
It is the most popular one.
It is blackface for nerds.
I'm going to stop you. I hate that.
Whoa.
I hate that. But the fact that people say that is totally to the point where it's this very defensive culture that kind of looks at us like we are. No, people say that all over the place, Michelle.
I've never heard that. That's insane.
The term is nerdsploitation.
Yeah.
Which I, honest to God,
God.
It's like, oh, because do you remember? Because we all remember those times when nerds were forced to ride in the back of the bus. And,
right.
And nerds had to give up their. It's like, no.
I love inflaming this room. It is awesome.
Exactly. No, but I'm so glad you said that, Jeff, because it's tied into this, where it's this kind of. We are the meek. We are the ones being exploited or punished, but in turn, we're the ones also punishing others or victimizing others.
What else do young white men have to do? Be able to lash out at? I guess is the. God.
Well, okay, so my argument is that we have created a culture and have promoted this culture to its highest level that it has ever been. Right, this whole science and nerd culture has never been as influential and important in history as it has been over the last 5 to 8 years, right? With the rise of Google, and those are the people who make lots of money, are the startups out in Silicon Valley, right? Those are the kids that make all the money, and they're the ones that the kids in high school right now want to grow up and be a nerd. More so than they ever have before. You look at popular culture, and the cool kids are wearing glasses, right?
Also, we've talked about that Asian pivot. Just saying, a lot of those kids over there are already way far ahead of us in terms of nerddom.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
They have their own. They have their own version of being nerds, and they are also sexist.
Okay. Well, but my point is that woven into that fabric was where it came from, and where it came from was the kid in his parents' basement that couldn't get a girl, so he had no other social outlets. So all he did was create this visual candy for his, and I say his, but it's traditionally his, psyche to play with. And so the female characters were always buxom and tightly clothed, and the masculine characters were always much stronger and able to do anything. Right? So that whole comic book concept of human interaction is women are supposed to be beautiful and tightly clothed, and men are supposed to be capable of doing anything when they're in their special powers, which is what video games, comic books, and many movies to this point are speaking towards.
Can I jump in and bring up an old movie that...
Revenge of the Nerds.
Do you remember the rape in Revenge of the Nerds?
The rape?
I remember.
Yeah.
The rape scene.
Yeah, whenever they were in the House of Mirrors or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know, it's one of those kind of where... At the time, you looked at it and it was like, oh, it's the nerd's getting, you know, it's like his comeuppance.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, but looking back, it's maybe this is like a weird tangent to kind of jump in, but it's like one of those movies that I don't know if I can watch it in good faith again because, you know, a sexual assault.
Yeah.
Is played up for comedic, and also what happens? Oh, she actually loves him after, and I was like, wow, how much message is in there? But again, I want to say that's where this whole white knight, the sexism that's in the nerd subculture that exists, that I think we're only starting to really talk about. It's because we have spent the last 20 or so years legitimizing it or giving it room to grow.
Right, I more agree with that. Less than legitimizing, but more giving it room to grow.
Yes.
Yeah,
have you ever heard of
the word.
Have you ever heard of the I'm going to get the name wrong. Bechdel test?
No,
Bechdel
I don't know.
test? Okay, so BECHDEL test for women in movies. So basically this came out of an 80s lesbian cartoonist. I don't know why we have to mention she's lesbian, but okay. Alison Bechdel asked 3 questions about movies and for feminism in movies. Are there 2 or more women? Are there 2 or more women in it that have names? Do they talk to each other? And do they talk to each other about something other than a man? Now the worst thing is that there's a lot of movies that don't
fit that.
Meet that criteria.
Wow.
So now I'm starting to do this test on most of the movies I see. Thankfully, I saw Frozen. Disney's Frozen actually passed. They did talk about something other than a man at least once.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So
I haven't seen Frozen. Should I watch it?
Sure, it's a Disney movie.
I like pretty strict, but I'm like reading, no kidding, laugh. I'm reading the comic that the Bechdel test. I think it's it's a hard
Bechdel.
K. It's Bechdel.
Thank you.
Where it says, no kidding, last movie I was able to see was Alien. Yeah.
There are 2 female characters?
Yeah, there's Sigourney Weaver, and then there's another member of the crew who's a woman. There's 2 women in the crew.
Wow.
But yeah, they don't talk about men at all. I would also say Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier.
Ah, okay.
Is there 2 women in that?
There's 3 women in there. I was like,
I would
it's
like
also
to mention...
that's also that's following in the vein of the kind of the Joss Whedon universe where women actually women do things other than worry about boys.
Wait, that's possible that women can do things other than worry about boys?
It apparently is. I know. It's news.
I don't see how now.
We are being so
clearly
sarcastic.
have their plot twisted.
Come on.
Although I will say something here that probably is surprising. I have no problem with women in buxom whatever. if they want to go to the con and wear a piece of cloth, that is up to them.
Okay, but socially, it has become the only way for them to be a woman and applauded at said conference. Right?
Yes.
So to that end, I just want I too encourage people to do whatever it is that tickles their pickles, but I want them to do it more so because that is what they want to do, and not because that is the only
Tickles their
acceptable way for
pickles.
them to attend said conference. I
Right,
want them
and I
to
also-
not be standing around in regular street clothes, and people go, "Well, why didn't you dress up? You're so pretty. You should have dressed up." Kind of thing.
Okay.
And I've heard that at Dragon Con that's here in Atlanta.
Okay.
Oh, there's the expectation that you
The
you are a
expectation
woman,
that if you're fairly
you must-
attractive, you're supposed to be in something that is tightly wound and overly accentuating of your female figure.
That's an interesting comment. I had not heard that because what else would you be there for?
Right.
Obviously,
Right.
the Miss
That's-
Klingon competition.
Miss
What?
Kling-
I'd do that one. No
Look,
problem.
You
I
were
thought
denying-
we, I thought we,
you are
we
denying me-
sunsetted Tom's conversation of his toilet humor with the Klingon.
Oh dear.
I just love the you are denying what Jeff's pointing out is like basically it's that man saying you are denying me the chance. How dare you deny me the chance to objectify you?
Right. Man,
Crazy.
irritating.
God, we suck. Men suck. We
Men
are
do
pretty
suck.
crappy.
Men
This is
do
awful.
suck.
Can you guys
But
name
nerd
Klingon
girls still
homeworld?
survive.
Nerd girls are
Kling-
getting more and more strength every year.
That's
they
right.
really, really are.
We're talking out loud now with each other. We're actually talking to each other. We're not hiding
Talking
behind.
to each other. That's the big one. Is
Yeah.
like, we don't need the validation of the male nerd, whereas we can.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a lot of them now.
But that's
more
really
so.
fairly new. That's really fairly new.
Oh yeah, I don't remember.
And I
That's
think
going to happen with any
Felicia
subculture.
Day,
That's going to happen with any subculture because it still carry subcultures, even though they're a reaction against the main culture, they still carry over a lot of those norms that are inherent in the main culture.
but I
So,
think
you
somebody
see-
like
you saw in
Felicia
punk-
Day has
Punk-
done a lot towards making that happen.
Sure,
If you look at her, she's the guild. She
Mm-hmm.
created number of characters. It was just as male as it was female, and the females spoke about the game as much as they did anything else.
I also who's the woman who she writes Batgirl now. Gail Simone. Gail Simone. Gail. Come on, Tom, get it right. Gail Sim. Oh, I'm losing my nerd cred.
That
Yes,
sounds
you are.
right. That sounds right. No. What did she write?
I have no
Gail
idea.
Gailsimone. She's the one who wrote. She got her career started, I think, basically by starting a website, which basically just listed all the basically she noticed a trope in comic books, which was, oh wow, the female characters either seem to die or get assaulted, and she wrote this kind of list. It was kind of horrific. The male to female casualty lists. If you are a female character in a comic book, you are like 3 times more likely to die or get seriously injured than a male comic book character. Anyway, we are so just bouncing around all over the place today. So
I'm really quite enjoying it though. So I'm sorry to have entertained.
I'll have to
all
find
this for so long.
her website for it. It's really fascinating.
Definitely.
She writes.
So
she writes
speaking of
Batgirl, and I love
misogyny,
Batgirl.
So speaking of misogyny, Frank, did you have something you wanted to say about outfits?
I would love to introduce the country of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're going to skip the
Yay.
fact that Frank likes cosplay?
Well,
Yeah,
we all
skip
like cosplay.
And we just have to say a special thank you for Penguin's rule in the chat room.
Yeah, penguins rule in the
Ah.
chat room.
Because penguins
Penguins
are mammals.
rule.
They are not birds.
Penguins are not mammals, Frank.
I think your science is.
Never
So,
believe anything you hear here. Always check your
Yeah,
facts.
please. Please. Please verify everything that you hear on the podcast to be true, either from knowledge that you know from outside or from a third-party source. Thank you.
So I got a good one for you guys. I think y'all actually stumped me.
Okay.
So this country is actually in the EU, which is the European Union,
Estonia.
but it's actually geographically in Asia.
Turkey.
What country am I?
It's in the European Union, you said?
It's in the European Union,
But geographically
but geographically it is in Asia.
It's not Georgia.
Wow. Some eastern area.
Georgia.
Okay.
Is it Portugal?
Going too far east, Jeff.
Iceland.
That's not in
Iceland
Asia.
is not in Asia, dude.
Jeff, we got to talk about your knowledge of the
Sweden?
map.
How about Sweden?
Jeff. No, it's going to
Denmark?
be someplace near like Romania, I would guess. In that area, like Turkey area. And...
It has the land area equivalent of Delaware.
Oh God. Okay.
Is
so
it not
tiny.
Estonia?
Cyprus?
Tom got it. It's Cyprus.
Dang, nice.
Cyprus
Okay,
is
so-
officially in Asia?
That's interesting.
Huh.
There you go.
But in the European Union.
Hmm.
Asia, but in the European Union.
That's amazing.
Okay. That was a good one, Frank. That was a good one. Do you have
Yeah,
their...
That's a great one. I
Made
learned
us all
something.
think.
Right on. Okay.
So I just sent you a link, and I will say it aloud. The site was called Women in Refrigerators. I know it sounds like
Nice.
horrible, but it's basically her compilation of, like, isn't it fascinating how many female characters in comic books have been killed, raped, devoured, crippled, turned evil, etc., etc., etc. And so she just started compiling a list of all the characters and what happened to them. So.
Okay.
Wow.
Gail Simone, she's awesome. Batgirl is
Right.
really good too. If you are reading Batgirl, I highly suggest it.
I just started Dexter.
Dexter's Lab, I love Dexter's
Yeah.
Lab.
Yeah. That was the new comic. Yeah.
All right,
Okay, so...
Going to our thematic things. I'd love to jump into things that pissed Tom off that really shouldn't piss him off.
Yeah.
This is my fiance's out of town for a few weeks, so I am married to the Netflix, but I only have the Netflix streaming. I don't have the disc in the mail variety.
Yeah, that seems silly at this point, doesn't it?
Well,
I
here's
agree.
where the
well,
problem.
there's different food movies.
Here's where the problem is that Netflix seems to have. It has the sequel for everything, but not the original.
Oh, no.
And so I get into the bind. I would really like to watch the Expendables 2 and 3, but I'd first like to watch Expendables. How come Expendables 2 is on Netflix streaming, but not Expendables 1?
Oh, boo.
Go through it. It's like the Iron Man 2, I believe, is on... Or no, Thor. Or Iron Man 2 is on Netflix, but not Iron Man. What was going on here, man? Come on.
Yeah.
It should be the other way around.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't piss me off, but it pisses me off because I get excited because I'm like, oh, I would love to watch that series, and you only have the second film. Great.
But it's better than having none? Actually, I don't know.
Having
It may
none,
not be.
but yeah. So
May not
kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, I looked it up on Can I Stream It, and it doesn't look like Expendables can be streamed.
Wow,
Damn it.
that's sad. They have it turned off. Whoever it is that figured out what these DRM rules are is totally wrong.
Oh no, I was wrong. I'm wrong. It is a digital purchase or a digital rental, but there are no subscription services that offer it.
Can you look up something for me on the side? Can you look up Jobriath? I believe it's Jobriath, Gobriaith, or IATH.
G-O-B-R-I-A-T.
J-O-B.
Oh, okay.
It may be
Okay,
Jobriath
got it.
AD.
Yes.
And while we're
It
doing
is
that,
not
Jeff,
available for streaming, rental, or purchase. Sorry.
damn. All right. So I think, but what is available for streaming, purchase, or rental is, I believe, we have a letter from a viewer.
Hey!
letter from a viewer. Yes, let me pull that up. God, I should have had that all ready to go. All right. So I sent a note to a unnamed legal counsel, who then replied to my question that I ran into the RICO rules. Right. So there are laws on the books for that they refer to as RICO, and that is they originally used these for
Gangsters.
getting gangsters.
The mob.
The mob.
Gangsters
And so
with
there
the
is a-
ERS.
What's that now?
Yeah.
No Z, no.
I had someone was
no
friend. I was like,
A.
I was like, gangster, not gangsta.
Right, that is true.
These folks didn't have record deals.
No.
So the RICO rules have recently been utilized to try and attack people who are doing the quote-unquote patent troll lawsuits. Right? So the ARS Technica wrote an article about that I would just like to read a few words from one of our viewers on what they had to say about it. Let me pull that over here. So first I will read basically I just said, do patent trolls apply under RICO legislation? The unnamed legal counsel came back replying, using laws in ways that they were never intended usually ends badly. It seems unlikely, and researching legislative history could shed some light on this, that Congress intended the RICO statutes to work this way. Use in this manner is merely unintentional and consequence of bad drafting of statutes, like most every law passed by Congress. From a slightly higher level, this particular article takes a pretty negative tone with regard to trolls, and from the get-go, not unexpected from the source, which view I disagree with. And remember, he has been on the defense of some patent legislation. I agree there is a lot of frivolous patent litigation out there, but there is a lot of frivolous litigation in non-patent areas as well. Nonetheless, I don't think dividing plaintiffs into two camps, practicing entities and trolls, is the right approach. I don't have a problem with a legitimate business model which acquires good, valuable intellectual property and then seeks to assert its rights, even if never produces a thing. To analogize, should a non-singer be precluded from asserting the copyright to sing what he wrote because someone else sings it without a license? So, and to that question, even though so to analogize,
It's a specious comparison to like music because it's more of I copyrighted a song about falling in love with my brother's wife and denying anyone ever to write a song on that same thematic, which is what the patent troll is. I've decided to patent a concept and I'm never going to do anything with it. So I don't agree with the comparison to music.
So, well, wait a minute, because say you are unable as an entity to exercise the patent that you have applied for and acquired, right? So you get a copyright on words to it, lyrics to a song. Yet you aren't able to sing that song yourself because you're not a singer.
Right.
And you can't get anybody else to jump on it in a licensed way, right? But somebody just sees your lyrics in one of those books that you're trying to sell your lyrics on and just goes, yeah, I'll just sing this song. And so then they just go out and sing that song. Shouldn't you, as the author of those lyrics, be justified in going
Absolutely
and getting that?
It's
as an unpracticing, as an unexercising owner of those rights.
Yeah, but this is where this is apples and oranges. I'm saying, but that's taking word for word, taking a concept created by someone and just using it as your own without giving them their fair share. If I what if I it's like the bullshit of when it gets a little bit more abstract into like there's this concept of the phone that can probably do X, which is something really broad and generic.
Right.
And then, but I don't do anything. I just wait for someone else to develop it or do it, and then kind of litigate against that.
Right. Well,
because
it's
you're the
a
one who's
concept that people are arguing that Apple, when it comes out with its smartwatch, is going to make the face of it round, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Apple would then try and patent a round-faced smartwatch.
Because we've never had a round-faced watch.
Well, a round-faced smartwatch has not been released to this point. Right. Exactly. So should they be able to patent a round-faced smartwatch?
No, because it's not innovation. It's not. It's the same BS with their suits about the slide to unlock.
Right.
That's not anything creatively new. That's a intuitive concept.
Well, it is now. What, 10 years ago, was it?
It's like the meme that went around with the slide bolt. It's like, oh wow, Apple. So you guys were around in the Middle Ages when we developed the slide bolt for doors.
Fair enough. All right, so that's my letter from a fan.
Interesting. Wow, very good.
That's just another concept we should go through. And also in the news this week, I found driverless cars.
Driverless cars.
Driverless cars. So driverless cars, Google released its first prototype vehicle that actually had no steering wheel, no pedals, no nothing. Right? You sat down, you operated a touchscreen interface to tell it where you wanted to go, and the car did absolutely everything else. Right? Can you imagine how much free space you'd have in the front of the cabin of a vehicle if you had no place to drive it, or you had no control devices to control it?
There's no emergency steering in case you need to take over for the device.
They said, let's do this like it's supposed to be done, which is there is no other option. Right? So if you look at the statistics on it, the idea is, to me, a very strong one, right? People make mistakes. No matter how well-intentioned we are, we make mistakes. And most traffic accidents, I think I read someplace, 98% of traffic accidents are based on human error. Right? And cars, to this point, are still kind of, to a certain point, drive-by-wire. The devices that keep us turned and keep into the streets are ones that are done electronically mostly. You know, you've got a hydraulic pump that turns the wheel, et cetera, et cetera. So BMWs and Cadillacs and all these cars are not mechanically operated mostly at this point.
You've got me smiling because I've got a big question for you. Isn't this, as someone who is a bit of, it's very kind of civil libertarian in principles, isn't this kind of, when you say people make mistakes, human error, isn't this a surrender or a loss of personal freedom if suddenly we move to, well, let's make machinery that makes the decisions for you?
This is me thinking.
I like you thinking.
Yeah. So, I agree with you that we don't want. So, to my civil libertarian concept, I don't want another human to make the decision for me.
But doesn't a human write the code?
That's where I'm in a debacle. Right? I'm okay with the machine doing something for me that I have scripted for it to do. But really, when you come down to the code that's written there, somebody else is making the call for you.
And is it artistry? Full circle.
I'm holding back the cackles that are going through my head. I support driverless cars just because I think it would save so many people's lives.
What's your opinion of the whole, it's borderline, definitely viral. I finally clicked to watch the video after the 40th person posted it. Was the solar roadways.
No, I didn't see this at all. You
must
have more in tune.
Man. There's a Kickstarter out there for solar roadway, which is very slick and kind of in your face, extreme solar. I think it's solar freaking roadways. That's what they keep. And it's the idea of these hexagonal panels, the interlocking hexagonal panels, to basically turn Oh, why am I hearing sound? Sorry, I think I have my... what is this going? Go away. Sorry, a video started up on my screen. Interlocking hexagonal panels, basically the idea is to turn all our roadways and parking lots and driveways into basically a solar panel, to make them the new electrical grid. And the idea is if you've replaced all the roadways in the U.S. with these interlocking solar panels...
Space. Yeah, that's a lot of space.
It could provide 3 times the current electricity that we have or need that we have in the U.S.
And reducing overall energy consumption, because if it's a cover over everything, it'll block the sun that's coming down on the cars. Therefore, the cars don't have to run as much air conditioning. That would inherently reduce the overall.
They got really. It's worth watching the video. I mean, the economics behind it is a little bit iffy because to replace all the roadways with hexagonal. It's 3 times the national debt to replace the roadways. So there's that kind of pie in the sky optimism for something that maybe replacing the parking. The best thing I saw was like if you're replacing parking lots.
So it's not actually above; it's actually just on the ground.
On the ground, and it's on the ground, which allows you. They have LED lights in them embedded, so that you can reconfigure a parking lot like that, because basically like, oh, we need more handicapped parking, or we need to change it to angular. Boom, it's now angled parking, not straight on parking.
Gotcha.
Do I need to like put information on the road saying slow, there's a boulder ahead or something? Boom, click.
Yeah, there's good concepts to that.
Yeah, it's just I think
our paving technology is way behind. But to me, so you do this in there's a place in Texas that they are doing that's the most electrified place in the country. Where is this? In Austin. What is this? Come on. I can't even remember what the name of it is. Thurber is what it's saying? No, that can't be it. There was another thing that I was reading about. That there are more electric car owners in this city outside of Austin than any other place. It's a suburb of Austin, right? And so they have a huge amount of people that run electric cars and do electrified things. And to that end, that's kind of one of these pots of people who are willing to do a little bit more to get to bleed the edge, if you will, to cut that new knife, to forge the new concept. And so I think that kind of concept with a roadway that is doing all of that, you kind of have to do a couple of dry runs before you can pave every American road in those kinds of things. But I support it. I think it would be awesome. If they're running solar panels in there, wouldn't they be able to run a slight electric heater so that you could keep the roads from being iced?
Watch the video. That's also, they said you could eliminate the need for snow removal, or reduce the need for snow removal, because they would in the winter be able to like have thermal output to keep the roads de-iced and snow free. It's worth watching. It's worth watching just to see. Wow, that's a slick way of doing a Kickstarter campaign, because it's exciting. Everything is hitting on cylinders. The solar frickin' roadways keeps being, it almost becomes a mantra in the video. Where I pause is just a kind of everyone posting is like, why aren't we doing this today? We should do this. And I'm going, y'all, this is expensive as hell.
Yeah.
Pause with your, because your reaction, your negative reaction to like, why aren't we doing this?
$1.8 million has been given to
donated.
the Indiegogo.
Yeah.
Indiegogo.
Yeah. I mean, good on them. I hope they, they work on it. I hope they experience. My problem is the people saying, we should be doing this tomorrow. And I go, pause. Don't. You just watched a 4-minute internet video and now you're ready to, like, we can change the world tomorrow.
You want to run a 10-mile stretch of practice roadway? Go for it.
Go for it.
Go for it tomorrow.
Yep.
If you want to feel
Totally
like you are going to run the entirety of the planet on this, I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not ready to plunk down 3 times the national debt on a couple from Idaho, engineering couple
Okay.
from Idaho's solar panel idea. But
Yeah.
props.
All right. Things that piss Tom off.
Oh, I already did that. I'm doing
Oh,
asset
okay.
now. This
Ass
is
hat.
my. How do I go to the next topic? Thank you. So my ass hat, and this is from a couple of weeks ago, I think, but is our good friend Pat Sajak. Oh, only a week and a half ago. Pat Sajak. First off, I hate Wheel of Fortune. I don't understand. If you're a fan of Wheel of Fortune, that's fine. I don't get the attraction. That show bores the hell out of me. They need to bring it back. The old school Wheel of Fortune where you had to buy stuff after each round.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome. Remember like the head floating around and be like, I'll take the vase with kitties playing poker, and I'd like the love seat with corduroy, and I'll take the rest in a gift certificate.
Yeah.
Love that. That was the best part of the show. Now it's like, whatever. So anyway, Pat Sajak, and this may go down into, you don't understand how the internet works. Pat Sajak apparently has a Twitter account because all celebrities have Twitter. And he tweeted on the 20th of May, I now believe global warming alarmists are unpatriotic racists, knowingly misleading for their own ends. Good night.
That's gotta be a hack.
And
It's gotta be somebody who
after it all came out, he basically said, "Of course I was joking, just mocking the name calling that is directed. It was just, or no, excuse me." He said the next day, "Sometimes it's fun to poke a stick in a hornet's nest just to hear the buzzing." But it's not like you didn't poke it with a stick. I really believe you just pushed your genitals into the hornet's nest to see what happened, because that is just.
Stick
So it wasn't a
in a
hack.
light socket. Watch this.
Unpatriotic racists?
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that's where it gets me. I could, depending on your perception of climate change, if you're a reactionist against belief in climate change, I could sort of understand where you might try to say this is unpatriotic. You're holding back America, but
America.
Racist?
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Plus, I also thought Pat Sajak was Canadian. I didn't realize he was American for some reason. That's, I guess Alex Trebek is the only Canadian. So that's my ass at Pat Sajak. Mostly not just for the tweet, but also the response to his tweet.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. All right. Well, do we have any other topics we want to discuss?
I think we can probably put this marathon in the can.
Yeah, put this marathon in the can. We really did cover quite a bit this week, and we
Yeah.
thank everyone for joining us. The numerous questions that we have answered today, and Penguins do rule. We look forward to seeing you again next week, where we discuss what we think. You don't have to think about these things like I think about these things.
You don't have to think about these things the way I think about these things. Mouthful.
You don't have to think about, or you don't have to like Woody Allen. You don't have to like Orson Scott Card, Michael Jackson, or separate the art from the artist. You don't have to like women in nerddom or know the EU country that is actually in Asia.
But you do need to know Philip Glass.
You do need to know Philip Glass. You don't have to like Netflix sequels, and you don't have to travel across the country in driverless cars or like Pat Sajak. But we do ask that you think.
We do ask that you think.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again next week, where we get to do all of that once again. Oh, wait, Frank's on. Frank, did you want to say? What do you
I
think?
was actually watching the show.
Were you? You stopped being a part of it and just decided you were going to watch?
I wanted to be part of the audience.
How was the audience experience?
For the fourth wall.
It was
That's meta.
It was
That
powerful.
is so meta.
Because we're not artists without the audience.
That is the way I think.
All right, Frank. How do you think, Frank?
I like the Simpson Legos that are out now.
Yeah.
That's a solid thought.
And on that thought, we will leave you to think on your own. So long.
See you
So
next
long.
week.